When you're working with cloud resources in AWS Lightsail, network security is crucial. I mean, you have to be living on a rock to not see all the different attacks on the news and how much these hackers are really getting into our systems. And it's going to be more and more crucial today because everything is becoming connected. Think about the Internet of Things, big data, everything is connected to the internet. It also needs to be secure. I mean, even our alarm systems to our car, our ability to unlock and lock our doors, view our homes through our security camera systems, all these things connect through the internet and must be secure. And in the world of cloud computing, most of these systems are operating on a cloud server on the back end. So it's very important and crucial to understand how to secure these systems. So in this example, we're going to configure a firewall in AWS Lightsail that involves creating a set of rules that determine which traffic is allowed and denied. Okay, so we're going to go to our CentOS here. We're going to manage it here. We'll scroll down and go to networking. We'll stop here at the IPv4 firewall. Now again, I love clicking the little question mark icon. It gives great detail about what's going on. It's probably just going to mention a lot of things I said before, but let's read through it really. Now, the IPv4 and IPv6 firewalls control the traffic allowed to connect to your instance at the protocol and port level. Now, the protocol is either going to be TCP or UDP. The port level is going to be something like port 22, which correlates with SSH, port 80, which correlates with HTTP, port 443, which correlates with HTTPS. It allows us to edit our instance firewalls at any time by adding and deleting firewall rules. So one thing to note again, that the IPv6 firewall is available only when the IPv6 is enabled. In our particular example, we can see here that it is enabled, but we're not going to add any rules for now. Okay, so let's hop back to this screen and get a good view of our IPv4 firewall rules. Now, if we're looking at, we see application SSH, protocol TCP, port or range /code 22, restricted to any IPv4 address or a Lightsail browser SSH RDP. So that's our first rule. Again, the application is going to be SSH, meaning that's going to be the protocol used to connect securely between an administrator and a client. Now, typically in a normal scenario, when you think about access control lists, a Lightsail browser SSH RDP, that's something that's new and it's relative and it's more specific to Amazon Lightsail. And what that means is it allows the Lightsail browser to be used for the SSH protocol, and that's going to be when you're using a Linux or a Unix box, or the RDP, and that's going to correlate to a Windows box. So that's a special case example and scenario for this particular configuration. Next, we have the HTTP rule, and all that rule is simply saying is that we will allow an HTTP connection that's using port 80. Now, port 80 is unsecure, and that is not typically what you will see in the normal networking environment. Most of the time, if someone's connected to a web browser, they're going to be using HTTPS. So we're going to add that rule here shortly. And it's restricted to any IPv4 address, meaning that anyone can connect to, and it can connect to any IP address. And lastly, we see this rule at all UDP. So that means any application that's using a UDP for the protocol and any port range is open season. But it's only going to be restricted to this specific IP address, which happens to be the Ghost 1 instance that I created earlier. So that particular instance, if someone's connected to that, can connect with any UDP protocol and with any port range. Okay, so what we're going to do is add a rule. And on this particular rule, we're just going to use the HTTPS. Okay. And we're going to restrict it to a specific IP address. And again, we're just going to use the one we already have configured here. All right, and create it. And it's as simple as that. Now, one thing to note with Lightsail, whenever you turn off or turn on your particular instance, the IPv4 address will change. So in this instance, I'm going to have to configure this to be a static IP address if I want to keep the same one forever. So if we go back to it now, we should probably see when we try to connect. Let's go back to home and we start this instance that the IPv4 address will be different. So now it's back up and running. So if we click it, we should see a new IP address, and it's not going to be the same that we had initially for the rules that were set in the CentOS networking firewall rules. So that's something to keep in mind. Again, when you're connecting these particular instances, this will change because that's just Amazon's particular configuration setup. That's one of the downsides of using specific IP addresses unless it's statically and hard coded into one of your servers or clients that you typically use. Okay, that sums things up. We went through how to add an IPv4 firewall rule in Amazon Lightsail, what the ports and protocols determine, and additional configuration features like the Amazon Lightsail browser being used as an endpoint and also restricting certain protocols to specific IP addresses.